So do you think women who are very marriage-minded should just move to Silicon Valley like you did? Like, would that actually be helpful
Absolutely.
or no?
Yes, I do. I think that
Okay.
that is basically the secret to the universe. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, I love it. That's iconic. The Life of Marin podcast is presented by MAAR Dating Club. MAAR Dating Club is a matchmaking service that represents New York City's most eligible singles. MAAR Dating Club works with professionals who don't have time or interest in dating apps, but still are genuinely ready to find love. We are a boutique firm that focuses on quality matches and guides and coaches our clients throughout the process. Use the link in the episode notes to book your introductory call today. Welcome back to Life of Marin podcast. Today I have Amy Andersen with me. She's a matchmaker based out of Valley, and she has her own company called Linx Dating. Welcome, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me be here. It's a delight.
So, Amy, you do matchmaking for mostly VIPs. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into matchmaking and how your business has evolved?
Absolutely. So I've been running my business now close to 21 years, which is crazy. It's like I cannot believe I've been doing it this long. It's been
Mm-hmm.
such a wild ride. And the typical kind of clients that I'm working for are definitely VIPs. Those are individuals who are really focused on finding the love of their life. Typically, they're coming out of a divorce, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they just haven't dated that much because they've been starting companies and selling those companies, and then just laser beam focused trying to find the right match. And I think just in our kind of dating climate, that can be really challenging. And that's what keeps us matchmakers really, really busy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. So, do you have kind of an origin story? Because I feel like
Yeah.
matchmaking is almost a calling. I'm now a matchmaker and I really did fall into it. Did you have something similar happen to you?
Yes, in some ways. I mean, I
Okay.
think at the root, I've always loved setting people up, like throwing
Mm,
parties and mixers, and always enjoyed that, like through my teenage and college days. And then after college, like that was always a lot of fun for me.
mhm,
And I mean, my story really is pretty simple. Gosh, in my early 20s, I was living in the heart of Silicon Valley
mhm,
and like right in Palo Alto, right near Stanford University, kind of the land of all these geeks. And
mhm.
I was in a really serious relationship with somebody who, started to introduce me to a lot of his buddies. And a lot of his friends were all these hyper successful guys, but had a very common thread of being totally single.
Yep.
I would say clueless about where to find women and ultimately meet women to date and maybe eventually marry. So back then, all these guys would complain to me and they're like, set me up. Like, I bet you have really hot girlfriends. And I'm like, why are you asking me? I just moved to Palo Alto. But that's
Yeah.
really dawned on me that there was something really, I would call it kind of unusual with the social landscape in Silicon Valley. And I saw a very similar common theme up in San Francisco, where I'm originally from,
Mhm.
amongst a lot of my female peers who couldn't find a good guy for commitment. So back then, and this is like literally, I mean, yeah, be prepared for a long time ago. This is like 2000 time frame. And that's where I kind of developed the idea of links. And I thought, what if I were to bridge that gap and create these really unique opportunities for all the lonely hearts, all these men in Silicon Valley, and all these accomplished women that are kicking ass in their careers in San Francisco, and do introductions. That was it. For me, it was really based on pure observation as a young aspiring entrepreneur. So, yeah.
That's an amazing story, and it makes so much sense with the women in SF and the men in Silicon Valley. So quick, I want to get to know you just like a little bit deeper. So I know that you're now married. How did you meet your husband?
So I was living up in San Francisco after this terrible breakup. I
Mhm.
moved up to San Francisco and took a few days off dating and then ended up in another very serious relationship and another one after that. And ultimately then had to really kind of take account of my life. At this stage, I was probably about 28 years old and
Okay.
running my business. My business was doing really well. So I had kind of all those, validations of starting my business and feeling really confident within my professional career. And it's like, yay. Uh,
Yep.
but then I was kind of realizing, oh my gosh, I'm reaching this age and thinking that I'm really looking for the right partner who has the same values as me and ultimately would like to start a family one day, even though I didn't know when or what that looked like. But I knew that that was kind of within my value system. And I had been dating a fair amount in San Francisco, and honestly, it was not working for me at all. A lot
Yeah.
of these playboys, a lot of these Peter Pans, and also, I mean, the funny thing was, and not so funny at the time, a lot of guys were really threatened by what I did and did not like it. So I found myself
Yeah.
like fabricating what I was doing. And I'd be like, oh, because I do some mixers and networking events for my clients. I was like, I'm an event planner. And that was very like benign and easy. And guys were like, oh, that's fun. But when I said
Yep.
matchmaker, a lot of guys didn't like that because it was deemed kind of threatening or who knows what, right? Because of their
Hmm.
insecurities. So I remember back when I was on actually an eHarmony date up in Napa Valley, and
Okay.
there was something magical about this particular day. It wasn't the date, but it was the day because it was like harvest season up in Napa in October, and there was actually a pet parade. So dogs and
Aw.
kids and parents and everybody was dressed up in costumes, and there I was on my eHarmony date with this guy that I just wasn't that into, but it made me
Mm.
realize that I wanted that. I wanted one day to be part of that pet parade and
Aw.
be there with my kiddo in the little red wagon and dressed up as a dinosaur or whatever. And I was like, and I'm not finding that in San Francisco. So I bid the guy farewell and I just said, this has been so lovely meeting you. I went back to my studio apartment in San Francisco. I went on Craigslist and I
Okay.
looked for openings in different rentals down in Palo Alto. Because I thought to myself, if I want to meet somebody commitment minded, I've dated a lot in San Francisco and it's simply not working and it's not happening for me, but I'm going to find somebody in a different, literally a different environment and geography. And so I decided in that moment to get rid of my San Francisco, my cute little apartment, my really comfortable life in San Francisco,
Hmm.
my girlfriends and my social network and social circle, and disrupt that and move back to Palo Alto, the place where I originally had come up with the idea for Linx Dating, and center myself in a more what I call target rich environment. And
Okay.
that was ultimately how I met my husband. It was a introduction from a mutual friend. And importantly, this mutual friend, Terry, he was kind of like watching me on the sidelines. And he said, Amy, I was waiting to set you up, but I knew if you were still doing your dating thing in San Francisco and kind of on your hamster wheel, dating a lot of these tech bros and
Hmm.
playboy types, the timing was not right for you. You wouldn't have paid attention to what then became my husband. And that is so
Wow.
true, right?
Yep.
So for me, it was so important to kind of, number one, disrupt the familiar, put myself in the right environment. And then I took time off from dating in general. And I just kind of breathed and I took account of my life. And I think that that was really important. And then when our mutual friend Terry felt that the timing was right, that's when he introduced us. And yeah, that's kind of my love story of how I met my husband. And I can tell you, when I met him, I was really clear with what I was looking for. And I think maybe that, like, well, I wouldn't even say it like shocked him. I know it was sooner than he was probably anticipating in terms of like getting engaged. But I do believe when a man is serious and a man knows that he wants to marry somebody, like they really do not dilly dally and waste time. Like he proposed
Mm.
about 8.5 months into dating, which is knowing him. Like now we've been married close to 16 and a half years. It was a very accelerated plan for him. Let's just say that.
Yeah. But when he knew, like he knew and he executed.
Yes.
So, no,
Yes.
I think that's good to know. So is your husband in tech?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he does investing a little bit in the tech community and mostly kind of in music, actually. So
Very
that's,
cool.
yeah, so that's his thing, but like very entrepreneurial. And I think what was interesting is when we had our first date, like time just kind of suspended. Like everything stopped around us, and we were truly in this like bubble together. And almost for the first time in my life since I had started my business, Linx, I wasn't leading with that. I was
Mm,
Amy. I wasn't leading with kind of the business side or trying to prove myself or compete with him. I just was myself. I was genuine. I was funny. I didn't really, I mean, I cared, but I wasn't trying too hard. And I think that when that happens, it's like that's when you know you have something special. Especially when I look back at all the other dates I had had, like a lot of them didn't work because I just wasn't myself. I was trying
mm.
somebody that I wasn't really, and it backfired. It wasn't natural.
No, that I love that. So you felt a different type of energy when you met your husband. So it sounds like you guys kind of had that instantaneous kind of connection. Do
Yeah.
you think there are circumstances, because you've been matchmaking for over 20 years, where it does take people a few dates to warm up? Or do you feel like after the first date, you just kind of know if it's a yes or if it's a no?
Great question. So my rule of thumb generally is 3 dates. Like give
Mm,
yourself 2 to 3 dates and then really take full account of how you're feeling. Because I think the first date in general is tough. Like even if you are trying to be yourself, still you can, walk away feeling not necessarily your authentic self and that you were like trying to say the right thing or look a certain way, even though you kind of had that mask on. So I feel that like the more you get to know somebody and really kind of leaning into the whole date experience and trying to kind of ascertain on each encounter if you're feeling the emotional connection, the cerebral one, the physical one, the spiritual one, whatever it is,
yep.
that you do need those dates to really see if it's there from a holistic standpoint. I do believe one date is not enough. Now, I think in my case, I had dated so much that, it was just
Yeah.
maybe a little bit different because I had so many different kind of what I would call dating data points that this was just different. Right. So I could really kind of take full stock of that and say, okay, this is such a different situation that I'm just going to kind of ride it out, right? It's
Yep.
unique, right? So I think that when you do meet the right one, there can be those cases and examples where it's like one date you kind of know. But I
Yeah.
think for most people, it's not always that obvious and it can be pretty elusive.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that. Um, so when somebody comes to a matchmaker, I think they're kind of like, "All right, I just invested a ton of money. Tomorrow, the man of my dreams or the woman of my dreams are gonna, they're gonna walk through the door and all of my problems will be solved." And obviously, we're both matchmakers. We both know that yes, that can happen sometimes and people get lucky, but sometimes it's more of a process. So, how long does a typical matchmaking process take from start to finish, just on average?
Yeah, I mean, I would say typically our contracts are at least 12 months and then
Okay.
with a freeze of 2 to 4 months or so. For my VIP clients, I really like them to kind of visualize this in two different phases. Kind of the first phase is what I would call kind of more of a dating and discovery process, where they're out there dating a little bit more with a high volume approach where
Mm,
they're gathering all of that data, right? All of those inputs to help fuel them into the next phase, which might be 6 months in or maybe 8 months in, which is more about refinement of criteria, tightening that criteria, and then really focused on getting into that right mental space and place in their life to allow for what could become an exclusive relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say for some clients, it can take, anywhere from 6 months to maybe a year till they enter that lasting forever relationship. That being said, I have a bit of a track record for doing a lot of introductions that I call kind of my one and dones, where it's like
Yep.
very first match and then they're off the market and literally like a Cheshire cat, like, "Whoop." And I'm like,
Mm.
wow, that was crazy. Um,
Yeah.
because I think when people do this, and very well from working with your high caliber clients, that when people do this, they are truly ready. It's like they're just ready for something real and authentic, and they're excited and energized by that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think like anything in life, when the timing is right, great things happen, right? And so
Yep.
that's why for me, like part of the process, especially in working with my VIP clients, is we kind of do a first date together. We do a meet and greet. So I really make sure that before we even talk contracts or what this would look like in representing them, I really ensure that the timing is impeccable for them. They're
Okay.
feet in, right? And when they are, that's when the magic can happen. So it can be very soon in the process or a little bit longer, just depends on the person.
Yeah, that's reassuring to hear, and I think it's case by case. So what does make somebody ready for matchmaking or ready to find their person? What qualities do you oftentimes see or look for?
Yeah, I think somebody who is ready for matchmaking has definitely put a foot or 2 feet in the pond vis-a-vis dating apps. So they've checked it out. Like they understand the landscape when it comes to all the different options out there. And goodness knows there's so many different options now. I mean, when I started my business, there was like Match.com, there was one other matchmaker, and that was it. Now there's
Mm,
a sea of choices, which I think is really good because it creates options and it gives people multiple resources, low, medium, and high, right?
mhm,
For them to really kind of understand, where they're at in the process. So typical client, I would say, has dabbled with the apps or at least kind of checked it out to see like what it's like. They might get off of those. They've usually exhausted setups from friends. I think the older somebody gets, and by older, that could be late 30s, 40s, 50s plus, those available resources of single people start to shrink down, right?
right.
So the
Mm,
once plentiful pond is now like dwindling by the day because people are coupled up or married or whatever the story is. And so I think that for this typical client, they've tried these things. I also think they have worked on themselves. So I love when my clients are in therapy, they're doing therapy, they've done therapy, they have a clear command of A, who they are, and B, what they're looking for. And so I think when we put all these different factors together and they send me that email saying, I'm interested in your services, that person is already pretty primed for matchmaking because they've been vulnerable with themselves. They've had relationships, they understand the options for matchmaking and
mhm.
dating out there, and they're going to be really typically a great type of person for me to work with, which I love.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. What are some dating trends that you're seeing currently in Silicon Valley or SF?
I mean, dating trends, I think, can be pretty universal when it comes to just dating in general. I think
Mm,
that I'm still seeing people play games, right? Where they are just getting their wires crossed. And this is, kind of irrespective of Silicon Valley or San Francisco dating. I think it could be very true in New York or Los Angeles or any kind of region. But I think when people are just not clear with how they're feeling about their respective match, they're playing games, they're waiting too long to respond, they're crossing
mhm,
their wires. That is a big problem. And I really tell my clients and those that follow my social media, be really consistent and clear in your communications. I tell people to
mhm,
kiss, basically. Um, Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple and succinct. So if you're feeling good about somebody on the date, then lean into that and give that affirmation. If you don't give an affirmation, your date's going to have no idea how you feel, right? And chances are people are not mind readers or psychic. So I
Right.
think when we slow down and we're really consistent in our communication and we're clear with how we're feeling, that's when people find the results they're looking for. My motto is do what your grandparents did. Chances are your grandpa wasn't ghosting your grandma, like if he was into her, then
Yes, retweet.
right? He was like
Yeah.
courting her and he was sweet and he brought probably a lovely rose or a bouquet of flowers. And like, even if she was a little uncertain, like she leaned into that and was not on her phone scrolling, right? Or playing
Yeah.
games. So it's like, slow down and focus on that one person. And that is something in terms of just, I would say, dating behavior, kind of that trend that
Hmm.
is constant thing that I see. And I think when we keep things simple, that's when we find results.
I love it. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Um, and you do represent a lot of high achieving men. What can a woman do to attract a high caliber man?
Absolutely. Well, I'd say the first and foremost thing is you got to be memorable. You got to sparkle, right? So
Mm.
there's a lot of competition out there on both sides, right? It's a competitive dating landscape, which it is what it is. So I think in preparation for your dates with a high caliber, high value man, you got to kind of really be memorable. So start with I think kind of brushing up on different current topics. Like you got to be well versed to a degree about a variety of subjects and subjects also that he might be interested in your free time, like be reading something, right? Be relevant. So when you show up to that date looking fabulous and feminine and really
Hmm.
embracing that side of you, you can lean in and flex that cerebral muscle. Men in Silicon Valley are looking for that. Thank God. You know, they
Mm,
really
yep.
are. They're looking for the whole package woman. They do want the beauty, but they also really want the brains and they want somebody to challenge them. That is sexy. That is sexy.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, it's like it's a hot thing. So when you challenge him cerebrally, and I'm not talking about like competing or anything like that, I'm talking about really flexing kind of the different interests, your knowledge base, like be an expert in some subject. It
Mm,
could be a hobby that you have. Let's say you really are passionate about wine. Like you don't need to literally go to some incredible, vintner school or, study wines for
yeah.
years, but have some sort of like, knowledge base so you can teach him something on the date and you can be like, this is something I really enjoy. And then volley back, like, what about you? Right. And so you're kind of showcasing your different, it's like a peacock. You're showcasing your different feathers and the different colors of those feathers, to be that memorable person that kind of sparkles. I think that that's really important. Because, as we know, kind of looks fade. So even though the visual is very important, there is so much more beneath the hood of the car for these guys, and
Hmm.
and really the brains is a big part, especially to keep up with him, right?
Yep.
And hold her own. If the connection progresses, it's going to be really important for him to see that he can bring her to different events, introduce her to different colleagues of his, and without him worrying about that, right, that she's going to say something inappropriate or not be able to kind of have that confidence from within. that's
Yep.
that is really key.
Yeah, and on the same side of the token, how can a man attract a woman of his dreams? Because I think there are also a ton of men out there who are marriage minded, they're ready to find their person, but they're making some mistakes. So, what would you tell a male client?
Yeah, I mean, I would say be a gentleman. Women love a man who's a gentleman and who has just good manners and has those kind of old school old school manners of chivalry. Chivalry is not dead. And I don't care what woman it is, universally across various backgrounds, you know, ethnicities, socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, whatever it is, women find it really appealing for a man who's going to pay her a genuine compliment, who's going to open a door for her, make her feel safe in his company, treat her to the dinner, right? And really take that initiative. And if he's feeling good about her, he's going to ask her out at the end of the date because he's confident from within. So I think kind of
Yep.
for both men and women, it's that confidence, and that is just so sexy. So I think for these guys, again, it's the basics. Like, we're not looking for like the world. We're looking for like, roll out a little red carpet, make us feel special, and again, memorable, right? Where he
Yep.
stands out from the other guys. So I think it's those basic things that can really make our heart kind of pitter patter when we've met somebody special. And
Yep.
I think the key then to kind of extend on that notion of chivalry is just consistency with communication. This again is where I think a lot of men get tripped up and they start playing games, or they're just not consistent with when they say they're going to call or reach out. I think, I think we all just need to realize that when somebody shows up to the date with you, like, they're there to get to know you, right? So really
Mm-hmm.
give them that respect, and remember that, right? And so if his date is expressing interest and seems to kind of perk up when he says, yeah, I'd like to see you again, and she says, that sounds great, and if he says, I'm going to call you, tomorrow afternoon, then call her or text her tomorrow afternoon. Don't wait
Yep.
4 days, right? It's the basics. Do what your grandparents did and you will find success.
Yep. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between what people are looking for in a first marriage versus a second marriage?
That's interesting. So I think, I mean, I see a lot of people that are dating going through divorce. I think the first marriage, it really depends on when people are getting married. Like, if they're getting married in their 20s, I think a lot of it is like kind of based on pure attraction, and like, we have a lot of fun together and
Mhm.
things to work. And so I think we want the same things, and let's get married sort of thing. I think that when you are in a long marriage and you've kind of weathered the storm and you've been through life's highs and lows and curveballs and all sorts of situations, job loss, loss of loved ones, whatever it is, challenges, having kids, that things look a little bit different, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of women tell me that they're looking for the basics of loyalty, integrity, honor, like just a good man who's going to respect her. Because
Mm.
sometimes through a long marriage, those values and principles have eroded due to a variety of different circumstances. And so I see kind of a sadness in these women that come to me after like a 30-year marriage, where they, that was once there, but then that just fades away and sometimes dwindles down to the point of extinction. And so they're really looking for just somebody who's going to respect them
Mhm.
and be a kind human being, just a really good person, but also like a good injection of fun too. I think that that's key. Sometimes,
Yep.
like, thinking about the second marriage, and in some cases a third marriage, like, people want to have fun, right? They want to live their life and have that,
Yep.
just that excitement again. And sometimes that's lost when you're married a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Are there specific sacrifices that may come along with dating somebody who is super high net worth or VIP? I think a lot of people do have this fantasy about that type of person kind of swooping them up and they never have to worry about money again or whatever. And living that glamorous lifestyle. Is there, are there different kind of expectations when dating someone like that that you can speak to?
Yeah, I mean, it can be very complex, right? So I think
Mhm.
to your point, it can be really glamorous looking from the outside and exciting and almost intoxicating. But in a lot of cases, unfortunately, it's going to come with a cost. And I'd say on a simple level, that can be that a lot of these very high profile people are off social media, right? They are private, they're
Mm,
notoriously private, and they really value the anonymity of keeping their personal life off the internet, off social media, off everything for many, many, many reasons, right? And so I think kind of on that simple level in the early stages of dating, that means like maybe going dark on your different accounts and not being glued to your Instagram or your TikTok, and kind of showing him that you're capable of this, that again, you kind of have a life outside of social media. I think
mhm,
that's really, really important. So as to kind of like already flex that muscle of like respect of what that relationship could look like, that you're capable of that. So I
mhm,
think that that's important. Um, and then I'd say, the other thing is, I just think it's really important to have a life outside of the relationship and have something that fuels you because like if we're talking about a really high net worth, high profile guy, these people are really busy and they
mhm.
have a lot going on. And so there could be a lot of times where it feels really lonely, right? And so if you're not like fueling yourself with different things that you're really good at and like you feel passionate about, then it could be a very lonely, almost relationship for you. So these guys like women who have stuff going on where they are confident within their own personal life, right? And
Yep.
maybe that means professional life too. Um, but I'd say definitely kind of just because like if things start to advance and you're entering that relationship with this really amazing VIP guy, like don't cut off all ties to the external world, like keep your own life. I also
Mhm,
think that means having your own bank account. Like I still think it is, no matter what, it's really important for women especially to have that autonomy over her financial wheelhouse. I can't say
yep.
that enough. I've seen so many bad things happen to women that really backfire, and where money is the center kind of force that is kind of the power of destruction of the relationship, where men use that as ammo against a woman because he has the control. So have your own bank account. Don't rely on him for everything. Have your own thing going on. Don't cut
Mhm,
off all ties to the outside world. But enjoy, just like enjoy the relationship, but
mhm.
exercise caution too.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's life is long and it seems like it's getting longer. And I just feel like, especially if you are dating somebody who's super high profile or, high powered, has a lot of money, access, whatever, you see a lot more affairs with those types of people. Well, maybe not. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
there are stereotypes for a reason. And so you don't want to just double down on one person and completely desert yourself. I think it's good to have a contingency or a backup plan, which might sound like a little callous, but I just think it's real. But yeah, and you kind of already spoke to it. I don't know if you want to speak to it anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that like have him prove himself, right? Like
Mm,
have him like don't be blinded by the lifestyle and
mm,
all the glitz and glamour. Like have him show you that he's truly a good guy and genuine beneath the veneer of all the fancy stuff. I think that's really, really important. And pace yourself, right? But I think, as you said, that contingency plan is important. And also that's going to mean that if things really progress and you're talking marriage and he's kind of springs on you prenup, that you get your own counsel. That is critical. So
mhm,
don't have him pay for your attorney. You pay for your own attorney and have somebody really good represent you that can put together your own prenup, so you're equally represented and it's not a one-sided transaction. Again, like I've seen pretty much everything. I feel like I could
yep,
write a book, like maybe
yeah.
books, right? And so you just got to date smart, strategically, and intelligently, looking out for yourself. That's really, really important. Not to like,
Yeah,
scare anyone, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to that. What are some common misconceptions about matchmakers?
I think one thing is maybe that, we can snap our fingers and find the match right away. I mean,
Mm.
I think that when people start this, they're excited, they're eager, they're really enthusiastic, which I love, but it takes time. So us matchmakers need to kind of temper those expectations that we're going to work really hard to increase the odds of finding the right match. But that can take time. So I think that that is like a big misconception that sometimes like we, wave the magic wand and voila, behind door one is
Yeah.
Mr. Dreamboat, right? Like that could take a few months to find that person. Um, I think I'd say that's pretty much the biggest one that I see time and time again.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Do you feel like men have higher expectations or women have higher expectations? Or is it equal? I would probably say equal from my perspective. Like everyone has high expectations, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, in working with a matchmaker,
Mhm.
yeah, I think those are both really high. I'd say it's
Yep.
definitely across the board, for sure with the men, for sure with the women. And it's a lot of trust. Like when I, as a business owner, as a matchmaker, an entrepreneur, I always try to place myself in the prospect and new client shoes. And when I
Yep.
think about it, I realize this is a lot of trust that they're putting in with us matchmakers. It's a
I
scary
agree.
thing, right? And it's a big thing that somebody does. It's luckily for us running matchmaking businesses, it's become a lot more kind of normal. And I think, there's really no stigma associated anymore with it. When I first started, there was a stigma. It's kind of like, is something wrong with you? And now it's
Yep.
very normalized. We've seen it in, across Netflix shows and radio shows and podcasts and all that. So I do think though that, people can be nervous with this, right? And kind of those expectations are there and they want things to work, but they're just kind of a little uncertain. So I think for me, like I'm always checking in with my clients. I'm always kind of giving them little updates. Even
Yep.
if I don't have anything like substantial to report, I'm just keeping that communication channel open so they're not anxious. They're not
I
nervous about like things moving slower than maybe, we had thought.
It's similar to dating, it's just keeping
Yeah.
it simple, keeping the communication open. What would you say to somebody if they're feeling really hopeless about dating? Obviously, it's the holiday season, and so this can be a time where people are kind of, feeling more lonely than, usual and whatnot. So, what do you say to people or what do you recommend if they are feeling hopeless about dating?
Of course, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, we have all felt hopeless and
Mhm.
times for months and sometimes years where it just, sometimes it stinks and totally sucks. So I think to just take time off. Like, don't feel that you have to put this incredible pressure on yourself to find love right now. If something is not working, then the universe is telling you something bigger, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I would say that is a really important signal to just take a step back, take time off from dating for like, the next few weeks, maybe month and a half, and just surround yourself by positive people, surround yourself by some great friends, take up a new hobby, work on yourself a little bit, right? And gain that kind of perspective. And I think when you do that and you almost give yourself permission to just take time off dating and you don't have that impending pressure to like find that relationship if it's not
Mhm.
working and you're feeling bummed out or lonely, then you're going to arrive to certainly the new year just feeling so much better about things, right? But just look around you. I mean, I think that's the big thing. Like, look around you at your community that you have built in, your social network, your
Mhm.
friends who are probably having the exact same struggles that you are, and just take a breath and realize everything is going to be okay.
Yep.
But do look at the bigger picture that maybe the universe is telling you something to just take a break, take a beat.
Yeah. I love it, and even when you were talking earlier about when you took a beat, you made that move. Like sometimes you can mix up the energy by hiring a dating coach or a matchmaker or moving or just resetting in some way. But, if you're feeling that just like severe level of hopelessness or loneliness, like take a breath, surround yourself with your community, like you said, and just it will be okay and trust the process. Do you have time for a few more listener questions? Okay. Okay. A lot of people wrote in, so I'm trying to pick and choose, but someone said, "How do you think the dating scene is different for men in Silicon Valley versus South California or SoCal?"
SoCal. So I think in Silicon Valley, a lot of these men don't necessarily have like a lot of resources when it comes to finding love. Like many of them are in their tech bubble and they've
Mhm.
been kind of laser beam focused with their academic career and then these incredible careers at companies like Google or Meta or Nvidia. And they just are basically glued to the job. And
Mm.
so they don't have like social resources to find women. And they'd almost rather like stay longer at work and hang out with their colleagues and like eat dinner with their colleagues and lunch.
Yeah.
And like never leave the campus basically, than try to figure out how to maneuver the dating world. Whereas in Southern California, I think there's maybe actually a little bit more of a balance where people are, they're going to their day jobs and maybe they're checking email a little bit at night, but they're also doing other things like they're hitting the gym, they're doing different like wellness classes or taking
Mm.
up continuing education classes or just like actually creating meaningful conversations with friends outside of the workplace so that balance is a little bit more there, which can be more conducive to organic conversations and first encounters where you might meet somebody who like you is single and then you actually have a date from that environment. So I think that I'd say that's kind of the big observation is just lack of resources here in Silicon Valley and maybe
Yep.
not as much balance and more balance in LA and surrounding communities.
So do you think women who are very marriage minded should just move to Silicon Valley like you did? Like would that actually be helpful
Absolutely.
or no?
Yes, I do. I think that
Okay.
that is basically the secret to the universe. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, I love it. That's iconic because I'm thinking about it and it is about proximity when it comes to your love life. And I do talk about distance, and although distance is a strategy, it is logistically really difficult to get momentum with distance.
Yes, 100%. I mean, one of the nicknames for San Jose is Man Jose. So need I say
Ooh.
any more? I mean, there's a lot of these guys, and many of them are commitment minded. I mean, that is what's kept my business thriving over the
Mhm.
decades, right? So there is no shortage of men, and I think it really focuses though on kind of what I did in my life where and this is important for a lot of women where we are all creatures of comfort. We all like kind of the environment that is comfortable to us, our social network that we can lean on, and our familiar spots that we go for dinner or coffee or wine after work or our gym. But if something is not working for you, I am a big believer in disruption. I think if you don't shake things up and diversify what you're doing when it comes to dating, then you're not going to find results. So I do think there is something to shaking up kind of one's routine, right? And maybe that
Mm.
means spending more time. Maybe you don't have to actually physically move to a new geography, but maybe it does mean putting yourself in those environments more than you are currently doing, which is probably none. And so maybe
Yep.
spend 2 days a week in Silicon Valley or whatever community, right? In the geography that one's currently living in.
Yeah, that's amazing. Someone said, "Does she match people outside of Silicon Valley? I'd be interested in a guy there."
Oh, that's so sweet. I do. I have tons of people in my database, and I have a lot of people all around the world who are constantly looking for love. So, most of my clients are centric to the Silicon Valley for sure, but I've represented clients all over. And I always encourage men and women to just add their information to the Links database. It's free of charge. And you never know, your name might populate when I'm running a search and you could be matched to your future partner.
I love that. Do you feel like people who are actual matchmaking clients are more invested than the people in the database? And have you ever run into problems with database members going on the date, but then just doing it more for the novelty?
Yeah, really interesting. So,
Mm,
not so much because my team puts these people through such rigorous screening standards that we really ensure that even if somebody's in the database, like they're in it for the right reasons and not the novelty of it. So that's been really, really important. And I have countless marriages where one individual was a client and then the other was in the database. In fact, one of my couples that's getting married in February, such an awesome love story. It was his very first match and her first match. He was my client, very high profile individual. And I had interviewed her actually back like, I want to say
oh my
6 years
God.
ago, maybe 7 years ago. And she was actually too young at the time for me to match to a client because she was like in her early 20s. And I was like,
Yeah.
like get a little bit more life experience, then
Mm,
we can talk. Um, because I really want these to count, right? Like these are these introductions. It could be the forever introduction, right? The
yep.
very last first date somebody ever goes on. So what was crazy is when I was running the search, her name populated as the one single candidate in all of my database that was a match for my VIP client. And I matched them and it was
Wow.
like just completely instant. So I think in that
Wow.
case, it's a great example of like somebody who's passive in the database and had been waiting there for years and just didn't know. And then when I reached out, she was single and very interested, and it was like the most magical match. So yeah, I think it's this, advice I could give your followers is
Yep.
put your name in the hat of many different matchmaker databases.
Hmm.
I think it's a great thing to kind of increase the probability. Us matchmakers love that. I think it kind of, creates options for us behind the scenes, but it's a smart strategy for a single man or woman to do is just throw your name in the hat to a lot of different matchmakers, test out the apps. If it's working for you, great. If it's not, take time off, but then enter those more target rich environments, right? Think
Yep.
about the type of person that you want to meet and where those people might be spending their free time, and get your butt in those environments, look attractive and say hi. Don't be shy.
I love it. My last question was, what's your biggest piece of dating advice? And you kind of said it already.
Yeah.
Any other tips, tricks, anything else you want to kind of add before we sign off?
I mean, I think it is as simple as introduce yourself. Hi, my name is, pay a compliment and just be a kind person. When you
Mm,
do that, it's going to pay big, big dividends in life, professionally, and in love.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Amy. Where can people find you and where can people enter your database?
Oh, absolutely. So I have a content-based website, so linxdating.com, linxdating.com. And then Instagram is ms.linxdating, so ms.linxdating. And would love for you to join our database and hopefully help you find the love of your life.
I love it. Thanks again for your time today.
Of course, it's been a pleasure. Happy
Okay,
holidays.
you too. Bye.
Bye.